Croeso, hello, welcome back to RobRyanRed ahead of the new season. Can you believe it, Nath, already? Wrexham back now in League One. It's gone quickly this summer, and we've got a lot to talk about on today's podcast. There'll be a look back at the win over Fleetwood in our final pre-season friendly, a look at our new signing, Dan Scarr, James McLean's new deal, and a look ahead, of course, to the new League One season that begins with Wycombe Wanderers at the Kairos this weekend. How you doing? I'm wearing my new Wrexham gold kit. Will it be another golden year for Wrexham? I guess we'll get to that with the predictions. But how are you doing?
I'm good. Excited for the season. I'm not in my gold kit because I haven't been able to get my hands on it yet. That's probably when I meet my dad for Sheffield United away. So looking forward to that. It looks very nice on you. Whether it looks as nice on me, and I thought that when I saw the black kit, I was like, wow, this looks great on Elliot Lee. Then I realised I'm not Elliot Lee, so it probably wouldn't quite look as...
Yeah, it should have that on an asterisk, shouldn't it? Saying
Yeah.
you will not look as good as Elliot Lee or George Evans in this, but still buy it, basically.
But
I'd
yeah,
say on the
so...
gold kit, it feels very premium. Almost doesn't feel like a
Nice.
Macron shirt, which is a backhanded compliment and a half. But yeah, really like the new kits this year. And as we say every week, let's hope we make them successful on the pitch as well.
Yeah, I'm good overall. Did manage to watch the Fleetwood game. I had such a fiasco of, as you will know, Rich. I went all the way to Bradford to find out my name wasn't even on the list. I couldn't even get in anyway, so I had to rush back home. Made it back to watch Wrexham Fleetwood.
This
So I
was
bought
for
the
a
pass
pre-season
for that.
friendly, wasn't it?
A pre-season friendly between Sunderland and Marseille in Bradford. So yeah, let's just move on from that little fiasco that sort of attempted to ruin my Saturday. Watch Wrexham, and yeah, I've been excited. I was kind of hoping by the time we'd record this podcast that there'd be a striker through the door. We're going to get onto incomings and outgoings, but all in all, new season, back in League One, 20 years at home. Super excited, mate.
I'm really excited as well. It's one of those where I've probably been a bit cynical in the weeks, been like, oh yeah, it's another season. Especially when you work in the industry, it feels so just perpetual and just like there's always obviously going to be football, and you have that sort of Mitchell and Webb skit, and it is just incessant football. Even when there's been no football this summer, we've had the European Championship, we've also had Copa America, and we've also had the Olympics football. Football has never ended, and it's coming back. But can it come back if it never went away? But I am starting to feel excited. We've done our predictions of the new League One season, which we'll get onto, and it's been difficult to sort of have head versus heart doing those. But Fleetwood win, another productive performance, I thought, in pre-season. It's been a very good off-season for us as a club. And the lineup as well, Nath, it seemed to me like Parky basically named the team who'll be playing against Wycombe inadvertently by the players who played against Fleetwood.
Well, I said, didn't I, last week that I would throw out the script and run this dress rehearsal as closely as you would to the Wycombe game. When I saw that George Evans was on the bench and it was another George in George Dobson in the starting lineup, I did feel for you in that clip we put out on Instagram, I think, maybe on YouTube as well, little reel of you saying it would be inexplicable to drop George Evans. It seems like maybe George Evans has fallen down the pecking order for now, at least. It seems like George Dobson is, for one of my favourite phrases, flavour of the month, at least with Parky. As of right now, recording Wednesday, the 7th of August, early afternoon, and we don't know the captain, do we, Rich? We don't officially know. We've got our ideas of who we think it will be. Don't officially know. George Dobson, an obvious contender for that. And so, yeah, he looks like he's got that midfield slot down with Andy Cannon, not James Jones, as much as people were pointing out how terrible a shout that was from me. Lots of DMs and lots of public messages about how terrible that shout was. So thank you all for listening and respecting my opinion on that. That's always very, very good. So, yeah, Dobson, Lee and Cannon. Barnett, as we said. Revan started on the bench, which was interesting. And the back three was the back three from last season. Dan Scarr wasn't ready in time to play, and Lewis Brunt doesn't look like he's come in as a starter. So, yeah, really interesting. And it was a game that I would say we dominated, but maybe didn't look anywhere near clinical in.
Yeah, interesting as well. Like I said, on last week's pod on YouTube, particularly, we asked people who they would say, didn't we, for the captain for next season? And there was a lot agreeing with you on Owen O'Connell. We had one comment as well from WNN_Paddy Power said, I want McLean as my captain for the away games when we're lacking spark. When we're away, McLean will light a fire. And he's put a dynamite emoji under them. There's quite a few as well, saying sort of McLean and Owen O'Connell seem to be the two favourites. But yeah, I'm impressed with what we've seen so far, and I was glad Max got another goal. I thought it was a well taken goal. We seemed to dominate it when we were discussing the game on Saturday. If you sent some messages saying they were almost James Gray-esque with your concerns about Jack Marriott in front of goal. There were two big chances, weren't there, in the first half? I think the second one, he does have a lot of time. He drags it wide. Pre-season form doesn't matter too much. But yeah, I think we don't want to be negative too much. But Jack Marriott, we seem to mention him every week about how he's got this point to prove, and it carries on being that way. We've still not seen enough of him, have we, going into the season? I mean, are you comfortable with him starting against Wycombe, or do you think he has to be off the bench? Or
I mean, I sound like Dean Keats there. He had three really good chances, I thought. One where I think it was a back heel from Dolby, spins in the area, flashes it wide, would have been a great finish. Then he has those two one-on-ones where you just never felt he was going to score. Second one, he just drags it horribly wide. And, you don't want to pick on players too much, but strikers, they get all the praise when it goes well, right? So if they score one goal and you win 1-0, they get all the credit for the match-winning performance. And while there's an expectation that Mullen will be back sooner than later, I just don't have faith in that any striker outside of Mullen will get you 10-plus goals. I understand that Lee could get you double digits in goals. I understand that Cannon is a goal threat. Max can be a goal threat from the back. Dan Scarr from set pieces could be a goal threat. Barney's looking good in terms of his assists. Revan, I think when he plays, his final ball will be key. And Marriott makes a lot of nice runs, does a lot of good work, more so than, say, Billy Waters when we saw him in his fleeting appearances. I just don't believe in my heart of hearts that we have that firepower up front if people believe we can really contend. And there are plenty of people that listen to this that message me on the regular and say, that they're more optimistic than me, that they think we have got enough, we have got that firepower, we have got the goals in the team. It's one of the things I would love to be wrong. I would love Jack Marriott to go and get 20 goals or 15 goals or 12 goals. But we haven't seen much of Stephen Fletcher in pre-season. Ollie Palmer, I think, is useful, and I would start him at the weekend. But I don't know how many goals he can realistically get. I don't think double digits. Sam Dolby, there's been links to Oldham. Again, even if he stays out, I'm not sure I can see double digits in goals. You know what I'm saying? I just think we really need that statement signing in attack. You just need
use what
somebody.
your double D's, don't you? That's what you want.
Double D's is what I want.
Yeah,
I don't think that's too much to ask either.
It was an interesting one you said though, in terms of the goal scorers, because last season as well, it did feel like it was either. I know we got goals chipping in by the end from a lot of different players, but it did feel that if we've scored a goal, if you see on your phone that Wrexham scored a goal, you can sort of safely say it's got to be Mullen or Lee who scored those goals. So I'm just wondering, to be devil's advocate here, I don't disagree with you, but I'm always going to say, do you actually need that of a striker? Because if Mullen comes back and does what he did last season and gets between 20 and 30 goals, Elliott gets between sort of 10 and 15, and then everyone else does just chip in with 5 or 6. Is that enough, or do you think that now in League One, the quality of chances is going to be few and far between? You need more clinical strikers. Do you really think that we need that extra striker still, or do you think there's an argument that we could still achieve our sort of ambitions with who we've got at the moment?
No, usually you're the person who gets to be negative and I get to be the uplifting one. I just don't see it. I don't see without another forward. If it was me, I would make 2 moves between now and the end of the window. I would get an under 21 player on loan, and I would go and get another goal scorer, because I think the level is going to step up. And so even if
the under 21 will be a striker as well.
Yeah, I would get 2 in, and I would do some rejigging of that forward line, because I just do not think that you've got enough goal reliability in there. And I see what you're saying about Lee and Mullen, but let's just say with the step up in quality that both of those numbers temper slightly. Let's just say Lee goes down to 10, 11, and Mullen comes down to 20. That's still a great return. That would be an unbelievable season for Mullen, 20 goals in League One. But that's 30 goals there. You're going to need to score a lot more over the course of the season if you're going to be in the top 6. And dare I say, if you're in the top 2, you need a hell of a lot more. So, are we just going to win every game 1-0. Defensively, we look great against Fleetwood. I think we've got the best goalkeeper in the league in Okonkwo. Dan Scarr's a great pickup. We'll get on to him shortly. But do I honestly sit here, look on YouTube and speaking to the mic for Spotify and Apple and all that, do I think we've got enough firepower to get, back to back to back? No, I don't.
Yeah. So on that, what I'd say is, one, I think that we'll make a move for a striker very late in the window. I mean, look at Luke Armstrong, and we left it too late last summer. But I think it'll be similar this sort of time around, where we always talk about those moves at Evans and the Okonkwo that came right in the last week of the window because Parky was keeping his options open, waiting for movement elsewhere. I think Wrexham will make a big move for a striker in the dying days of the window. I've also just got this feeling, we've said it, haven't we, a few times on our sort of WhatsApp groups. I've just got this feeling that we'll then go in big for a striker in January as well. I can see us starting the season and lacking that firepower, and then maybe addressing it halfway through. But let us know what you think about the striker situation. I'll make myself and Nate being too negative ahead of the new season. Do we have
Probably
enough already? Basically, does Wrexham's hope of another promotion rely on signing another striker, or do you think we've got enough at the club already? Nath, new arrival, Dan Scarr, as we mentioned, that landed on, was it Friday night that landed?
I think
it
so.
was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think it was.
It was quite a surprising one, wasn't it? We saw the HP printer again. It was teased. We got wind of who it was who was signing. And I can't say that another centre-back was next on anyone's bingo card, really, was it? When you look at it now in hindsight, it does make sense. He looks like another great addition. And we've spoken about just how fierce you need your competition for places to be. Just when we're in position now, like we said, that George Evans isn't even a guaranteed starter, that is ludicrous how much quality we've got in the squad. But in centre-back now, Dan Scarr arriving, Plymouth fans gutted. They said that their form really improved last season when he came into the side. Wayne Rooney allowed him to leave to come to North Wales. What do you make of the signing, and where do you think he fits in? Do you think he'll be one of those players who slowly gets a starting place and is then undroppable?
He strikes me as a Ben Tozer type signing. Someone that is better in a 3 than a 4. We'll go into that middle of the back 3. I think, look, Dan Scarr has won promotion from League One in that Plymouth team that got, 102, 103 points, whatever it was, when they won the league. Fabulous, and he was really pivotal in that run, and was key actually last season in keeping them up. It went down to the final game. I think they beat Hull on the final day at home park. And stayed up, and he was key to that. So it's not like a player that's been cast aside and maybe wasn't involved. And with respect to George Evans, I mean, Millwall fans weren't so disappointed about him going than maybe Plymouth fans are about Dan Scarr going, which I think speaks volumes when the club that he's leaving is so magnanimous and disappointed, in terms of him going. I'm just intrigued because I think you really need that consistent back 3 if everyone's fit. And should say congratulations to Jordan Tunnicliffe. If that contract got resolved, he's going off to start a new chapter at Solihull Moor as one of our defenders that went. And that happened this week, didn't it, as well? But what I would say is I just think you need to settle on the back 3, and I think Dan Scarr will have to be in that. For me, the curious one is, do you move Owen O'Connell to the right and move out Max, or do you shift Owen O'Connell or Max to the left and move out Tom O'Connor? From what I saw against Fleetwood, I thought Tom O'Connor was my man of the match, really. I thought he looked very good. One of the balls he played over to Marriott was a ball that only he could have played from the back, and that's with all the credit in the world to how good Max is and O'Connell is. But this was a midfielder's pass from centre back. I think that's invaluable. And I'm really curious for that back 5 because Mansfield fans will no doubt be asking, how the hell is Lewis Brunt sort of 5th in the pecking order? Will Boyle will be bottom of that pecking order. But Dan Scarr and Owen O'Connell, I'm not sure if it's an either or with those two.
What would your back 3 be at the moment then? I mean, like we said, I think for this weekend's a difficult one because Pre-season form will dictate that a lot, but like you said there, we've got all these new signings, but none of them in defence, and none of them necessarily start in the first few weeks of the season either. Maybe it will be Sheffield United in the Carabao Cup when we see Scarr and Brunt finally play, and you talk about that being a potentially weakened team. Well, by the end of the season, they might be 2 starters as well. So it's just going to be fascinating, isn't it, to see how the defensive sort of hierarchy unfolds, because Parky likes sort of having that consistency, particularly in the back three, doesn't he? I mean, if you think about Wrexham's best runs, it's always felt like we've known exactly who's going to be in the back four. Obviously, Notts County away was a bit of an exception where none of the defenders who were meant to be starting basically did, and we kept a clean sheet. But it's going to be difficult, because if we start the season well, in particular with basically last season's back three, the new signs even have a chance to come into the team. Obviously, there might be a few injuries and rotation, but it's a real uphill struggle, isn't it, for them maybe to force their way in?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it and go, you could realistically have, for the opening game, you could have Ryan Barnett at right wing back, James McLean at left wing back, with Tom O'Connor, Owen O'Connell, Max Cleworth. That wouldn't be that surprising as a back five. And then a few days later, you could go to Sheffield United with Luke Bolton at right wing back, Lewis Brunt right centre back, Dan Scarr, Will Boyle, and Seb Revan. And it probably won't be a totally new back five. I like I said to you, I think last week, I don't think it'll be these 11 changes for Sheffield United, but there's 2 separate back fives there with no crossover, and they're both great. They're both really, really good. So we're asking who should be. It's a good problem to have, but it's also, in my mind, a slight problem in that Dan Scott's come here to play. Let's be real. A lot of these players have come here to play. No one's come here to make up the numbers, and so I think it's an even bigger test now. You're getting better players. Can you manage that? Can you ease them in? Can you get them to buy in? Especially if the results aren't as positive as they have been for the last 2 seasons. Because when you're winning, who can say anything? You can't argue about being in the team if the team is winning, right? You can't say, put me in, coach, put me in, gaffer, because we're not. We've just won 3-0, kept a clean sheet.
Yeah.
So
again,
it's tough.
last season as well, Parky basically set on his back three, and then we went and got thrashed by Stockport, and things sort of got ripped up again, didn't they? I mean, if we do start the season, it's that early season form has really got to dictate the opinions, isn't it, and how we feel about the squad. And you can't be writing people off too quickly this season. And as we'll get onto in our Sheffield United chat actually towards the end of the podcast, don't panic if it's a slow start, because they will tell us a story about how Sheffield United started the season really poorly and ended up getting promoted. So it's got to be interesting to see. The other interesting piece of transfer news, which has just happened before we recorded today, is James McLean has signed a new 2-year deal. Very popular with me. I think with most fans as well, it's great to have him, such a good, consummate professional around. But another 2 years is quite the commitment, isn't it, for a player of his age? I know he's such an outstanding athlete and such a model pro for us, and he's great to have around the club. But with Revan coming in at left wing back, does this hint maybe then that James McLean is going to slowly transition into a centre mid permanently, do you think? Or do you think this is more a case of he's such a good professional to have at the club, let's keep him for as long as we can?
I thought you were on the wind up before we came on, that he'd had a new 2-year deal. I was stunned by that, and not because he maybe doesn't deserve it, but just because it seemed like Parky and the club had set out a really obvious succession plan for McLean at left wing back with Revan. I guess you could move him into midfield. I mean, look, there's no resale ability on James McLean. He's at an age now where you're not going to make any money from him, so it's not a deal to preserve the asset. It's 2 years because you believe he's going to be able to contribute for 2 more years, and however the club determine that contribution to be valuable. He's incredibly fit. We saw him win the bleep test alongside my beloved James Jones. So, he's clearly immensely fit, but I don't know. I don't know. Like, for example, in the midfield at the weekend, do you drop Andy Cannon? Not really the same type of player, in my opinion. Do you put him in there for Elliot Lee? I'm just wondering, that 2-year deal, I just wonder how that will age, because yes, he's very good now, but for argument's sake, if Wrexham do manage to pull it off and go up, is James McLean the type of player that can be effective with minutes in the Championship? I don't want to say no, because I feel like he's
a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah,
no, it
is. No, it is. But I'm just saying that it's really curious, these long-term deals. We're constantly giving out 3-year deals, 2-year deals, and that's amazing, because we used to only give out 1-year deals, and it would give players no security, and it makes it a more attractive club to come to, even with the kind of the circus that comes with it. But I have to say, I'd be lying to you if I wasn't surprised that he got a new 2-year deal. But what it did tell me was that we've probably just seen an early announcement for who the captain will be, because without that, I can see sort of no real reason, if you were planning to move on from him at left wing back and he's having a bit part role in midfield and he's not going to be your captain. I don't think it adds up personally.
Again, though, for me, I think this almost builds into this idea that promotion from League One is now a 2-3 season project.
Right.
I think that this is effectively what that signals, that look, this first season we're going to learn a hell of a lot about the squad, how good we really are, how close we really are, the level we need to be at. Mac has been here, he's done it before, he's been a great player. Was he Wigan's player of the season in League One before he left us anyway? He's proven at this level he can do it still at a championship level, as maybe a more reduced role going forward. But I think it's just a signal that we need you for the next two years, because that's how long it might take us to get out of this division. It might take us even longer, who knows? But I think it is just an important sort of step in building the club for future success, really. And he's such a good pro. You know, every single player will go there and they will see how hard he is training. They will see the effort he puts in. And particularly for the young pros, they will be like, that's the standard we need to be at. And that is priceless. You will talk about what how much your contract is, how much people are on, but there are some sort of assets and traits like that are just, you can't put a price on them whatsoever. And I think James McLean has that in abundance. It's just his work ethic, his attitude. And I know he riles a lot of people up, and the shithousery will be on a whole new level this season. We've seen in that Fleetwood game, we saw the Levi Colwill incident, in the Chelsea game. We've seen exactly what he's like as a human, and he brings so much positive stuff to the football club that it outweighs any negative that anyone might have about him. So I personally think it's a real good bit of business. Again, YouTube comments, email us, RobRyanRed. Let us know what you think of James McLean's new 2-year deal. Are you happy to see him stay, or do you think this is a bit over eager by the club, something we could have revisited later in the season? He did get an extension when we got promoted to League One. That was part of his initial contract. This is a new 2-year deal that will keep him until the end of the 25-26 season, where that does seem an age away, Nath, but that'll be on us before we know it. Other bits of transfer news: Jake Bickerstaff looks like he could leave the club. Jordan Davis as well being talked for a possible loan departure. I mean, you've been drawing up the sort of squad, like how the squad could look for next season, really, and the spaces that we'd have available. And it's inevitable, isn't it, that all this excitement of talking about new additions, some people have to go.
Yeah, I mean, I also love very quickly that you managed to somehow hijack our usual double act, and that you're quite positive this week and everything, and I'm everything. All the topics are things I feel quite strongly against. So we'll be back to the status quo, I'm sure, next week when we beat Wycombe. But yeah, Jay Bickerstaff needs to get out on loan. I've been saying that for years. He needs to go, I think, now and really flourish. He's not this kid that. He isn't a Harry Ashfield who I've got high hopes for as a youngster that's coming through. He's 23 now, Bickerstaff. He needs to go out and score goals. He didn't do it at Accrington. To get 1 goal in 20 appearances, I think it was. Needs to go out there and prove himself. Needs to go to a level where
Jake is
22.
It's his birthday next month.
Yeah, so he's 22 until he's 23. As they say. But he needs to go out and play regular football. He's not going to get that in Wrexham. He's not going to get regular minutes at League One. I saw some people saying, he's better than Marriott and Dolby and Waters and Fletcher and yada yada. The ultimate facts are that he's not going to get any time to show if he is or he isn't. I don't think he is at this point in his career. I think his development will be better served going somewhere else, having a fresh start, playing every week, and testing yourself, seeing how you get on. Because he was getting more minutes at Accrington, and he looked raw, and he looked like a player that, while he was popular in and around the place, he wasn't, so popular on the pitch because he wasn't really doing the business. So, yeah, I would say to him, get out there. A new lease of life, a new start somewhere else can be hugely beneficial. And as for Jordan, I know Dave Artell, former Wrexham defender and Grimsby manager now, taught that up, and he's saying he's hopeful that they can get that one over the line. Don't underestimate the power of Sean Pearson in that deal. Sean Pearson loves Jordan. They were very close when Sean Pearson was at the club. Sean really wants him to do well, knows how to get the best out of him, knows how to nurture his talent. And I think that's playing a big factor in the idea that Jordan could go there. And again, Jordan is a classic case. He'll probably be loaned out to expiry of his contract, and then he'll be free to really go and get his bearings and try something else. And if that's Grimsby, great. If it's somewhere else, then more power to him. But again, if you're talking about McLean in midfield, he's probably ahead of Davis. Davis had a good pre-season, but I just think the mind is made up. I didn't get Phil Parkinson's quote about, we're
It's
looking
quite
for something for
contradictory,
Jordan.
wasn't it?
Yeah, we're looking to get something for Jordan, but then if he doesn't get anything, he'll be integral to the team. Both things can't be true in that sense. He's not going to be integral and available for loan. So I just wish Jordan all the best. Honestly, same for Jake as well. I just want them to do well. And unfortunately, I just don't think their best is going to be with us in League One.
We will see how that all transpires. Again, RobRyanRed on social media for all the latest. We'll bring you that on the transfer news. League One, then, Nath. We're back. It has been a long time. I'm very excited. I've been looking at the table. I've been wildly going from, we're going to do it, to, this could be tricky. We obviously shared that Opta prediction, which is done on a range of different sort of algorithms and stuff. One of them is historic performance in the division. That's why Wrexham were, 20th or 19th or 18th or something in their prediction, which I know riled a lot of supporters. I think for me, like we said, it's been very difficult to properly gauge head versus heart. Where do I think Wrexham will finish? Because one argument I've got going is we are now in a much tougher league. We are no longer the big fish in the small pond. We're not the richest club. There's other teams spend way more money than us. It's got to be tough. Another point of view I've had is we've always been sold this dream of, you've got a League One team. You're Blitz non-league. You're Blitz League Two. Well, a League One team in League One is just an average team. It's nothing special. And, it's going to be tough because our standout players have now sort of reached their level. And for a lot of players, there's question marks. I mean, even Mullin, who I do think will have a good season, he's played, half a season in League One? There's still that question mark that he has to prove himself. But on the flip side, we have momentum and belief and this optimism that is priceless. And every single season, even when you're doing these predictions, part of me was like, well, there's going to be a wild card because every single season, one team just exceeds expectation. Look at last season. I think Ipswich were one of the favourites to get relegated from the Championship. They go and get promoted to the Premier League. We've seen countless times before of teams who have been written off. I mean, you only have to look at Leicester City, 5,000 to 1 to win the Premier League? They had that belief, that optimism, that siege mentality, really. And Wrexham have this like no other club, I think, in world football right now. This belief and this energy and this backing and this winning mentality.
Rich, I'm confused. What's happened to you? I don't really know where. Like you're so.
The two things have to meet somewhere on this axis. So, should we start with our predictions for Wrexham for next season, or do you want to just do the whole league?
I'm really confused. I feel like there's some kind of like prank going on here, where you know what I mean. They're gonna actually bring out the real Rich, and we'll get back to the pod. This is so confusing. I'm gonna get the prediction up because I'm really unsure what's happening here.
Okay, so if you're listening on audio format, we'll talk you through these ourselves.
We'll
If you're watching on YouTube, there will be the graphic going on screen, which will show you our exact 1 to 24 for the League One season. And they're up on screen now for those of you who are watching. Nath, we'll run through them. Should we do top to bottom or bottom to top? What do you reckon?
Yeah, let's just work our way from top to bottom then, because we've got the same top two. I mean, for Birmingham, they have to go up. They're spending like they have to go up. They've got a guy nicknamed Thor, William Williamson, I think it is, from Go Ahead Eagles. I mean, this is a player that would have been in the Europa Conference League if he hadn't joined Birmingham. So that was 4 million.
And we were told they've got like a 15 to 20 million pound budget essentially this season to spend.
Yeah. So they're spending it. Don't get me wrong.
And Wrexham's club transfer record fee is still £300,000, which
for Ollie
in National League terms was amazing. But when you get to League One terms, that's just an average transfer.
Oh, they're not even blinking at 300,000. What was Alfie May? Nearly 900,000, something like that. Alfie May, top scorer in League One. One of the best players at this level for goals. He's looked absolutely on fire in pre-season. They've got others in there that they haven't signed. Sanderson. They've gone and got Peacock Farrell, Allsop as well, two reliable goalkeepers at this level. There's guys in there that I really liked anyway. Ethan Laird, formerly of Man United, I watched him in the Championship, looked right at home. He'll be really good again. Miyoshi is another player that I really like.
Mm.
Still thought that they could go and get Jay Stansfield. He was there on loan last season, which would be a mental move. You're talking 6-7 million if they can pull that one off. They've just got so many tools that, all right, it might not click straight away, and Birmingham might be that team that you want to play early on, but they'll Mark Leonard, I think, is probably going to be my early tip for League One Player of the Year. He was
So what
brilliant
you're
at Northampton.
so what you're saying, Nath, is that Tom Brady's ruining football. I know you've wanted to say that for a few weeks.
I've really wanted to have that as like a YouTube. It probably isn't the YouTube title to this, but I've really wanted to have the YouTube title that Tom Brady's ruining football.
We'll say that on for
Um,
September, yeah.
Yes. So they've just, I mean, they're spending fine, whatever. And Rotherham, I just think will be awful to watch. Like absolutely
Yeah.
horrible, painful to watch, but they'll be so effective because Steve Evans, that's what he does. He worked a miracle with Stevenage with next to no funds. He's got much more funds now at Rotherham, and they've ripped the squad up and started over again. Might not be quick out the blocks, but they'll be durable and they'll be really good.
Yeah. Playoffs, we've both got Bolton in there, both got Charlton and Huddersfield. I've also got Lincoln City in the playoffs. You've put Peterborough United. Similar as well. We've both got 7th and 8th exactly the same. We've both got Barnsley and Stockport missing out on the playoffs just. And then this is where we got our first proper difference, really. You've got Wrexham in 9th. I've got them in 10th. I think I put them 10th in the 4-4-2 season preview that spoiler alert, I think I wrote it in May. That's how early they were asking us for the season preview. It's absolutely ridiculous. I just think it's going to be a season transition. We've said it for weeks, and that's not negative. I think that's a great finish. But I think lots of people, strangely, when I've been looking around to gauge other people's opinions, I feel like loads of people are writing us off to be lower mid-table. And I just think, like I said, it is those priceless assets that we've got. Kairos is a fortress. Yes, we'll probably drop more points than we have done in a few previous years because that's the nature of tougher opposition. But no one's going to really want to come to the racecourse because we have such a winning belief there. We just have this knack of winning. I think we said on last week's podcast, I think there'll be a lot of games that we win 1-0 or 2-1 this season because our defence looks a lot tighter. To feel we're lacking firepower in attack to get us into the much higher positions. What's your reasoning for Wrexham being 9th rather than as low as 10th in mine?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the reason I've put them behind Stockport is I'm really, really high on Louis Barry. I like a lot of the moves they've made going forward. Corey Adai as goalkeeper as well, I think is a really good pickup from Crawley. He was one of the best goalkeepers behind Arthur in League Two last year. Louis Barry, I think, is an absolute superstar. And I really wished, I said it on the podcast many times, I was really rooting for us to get Louis Barry or Max Dean or someone young that's just so exciting and be worth millions and millions in years to come. I know they've got him on loan, but that's why I've got Stockport ahead of us. I don't think we're a million miles away from being within touch and distance of the playoffs, and I'd say we won't be that far off Huddersfield in my prediction. I didn't realise you'd be so down on Peterborough than I am. That's probably the big difference. But yeah, for Wrexham, I would probably have gone higher if we'd have gone and got maybe John McAtee or gone and got another striker, and I just feel like we're maybe not quite going to have the rub of the green with our attacking output in certain games, particularly on the road as well.
I guess if you want to take a step back, we've still got the second best attack in League Two from last season, where Stockport had the best attack in League One and League Two and have strengthened it. So we're still basically playing in attack with the same guys we had last season, aren't we? So, if it wasn't the best attack in League Two, you can't expect to then be one of the best in League One. I don't think. So, same as you. I think if we got McAtee and a striker, put us right in the playoff mix. I'd say I'd have us sort of where Stockport are sort of 7th or 8th for me, and who knows with that momentum. Into mid-table, very similar again. We've got sort of Wigan Athletic around there, Bristol Rovers, Wycombe, who of course we play on Saturday, and there's a lot of teams there where you look at them and think, that is just League One. That is League One heritage when you look at Leyton Orient, sort of Exeter City, Stevenage, and Northampton Town. We get to the relegation zone. I think this is probably where, again, we have the same 4 almost? Not quite.
Almost, but not quite. Yeah, what I was going to say very quickly that I've been mulling over, and I was debating whether I was actually going to say this because, fully behind Phil Parkinson and he is the man and all that. But I was thinking that if we ever had to move on from Phil Parkinson, whenever that is, Ruben Sellers at Reading, they haven't signed a player. They can't sign players because of their transfer embargo. Fabulous manager, plays great brand of football, young, progressive. Anyway, just floating that out there that if the time ever comes, Ruben Sellers, we should be having us nearly top of the list. But yeah, I've got Mansfield going down. I thought you might have agreed with me there, but no, you've got them surviving. I know they signed
I
Will
think,
Evans this week.
yeah, I
Usually
think
there's
the
one.
fact they've
Usually
shown
there's
Will
one that
Evans
go
and
up. Usually there's one that goes up that struggles. But I think 3 of the other 4 are the same.
yeah. So I've got slops rock bottom. That's where they belong. Don't really need to expand on that. Fleur Robinson Albion, they are 23rd for me. I just think, who cares? Crawley Town, their whole team's changed essentially, hasn't it, since they got promoted? They
Yeah,
kept 2 of the playoff final team that won, like the starting lineup. I think,
yes,
is
but
it?
the only saving grace is that I predicted Crawley to finish rock bottom last year,
Yeah,
and they got
exactly.
promoted. So that's probably
That's
a
why I
good
went as
omen,
high as 22nd.
right?
Cambridge United, Northampton, Stevenage for me, like they could have been in any order really. Just someone had to go into the relegation zone. I put
Yeah,
Cambridge United. And yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say, isn't it? I mean, if you looked at last season's predictions, we got them all horribly wrong, didn't we?
they were
So
horrible. They were absolutely horrible.
I'm looking forward to seeing who that surprise team is this season because I've got a feeling that one of those bottom 7 or something will probably be in the playoffs,
Yeah,
or they'll probably be top
I'm
8 or
looking at that,
something.
right, Rich. I'm looking at that, I know we said we're going to do a better job for the audio listeners. So I've got obviously Wrexham in 9th, Blackpool in 10th, Lincoln in 11th, Wigan in 12th. Now, from what I've seen online, Blackpool fans, Lincoln fans, and Wigan fans are cautiously optimistic at what they can do. I know Wigan managed to hold on to Jason Kerr. Sean Maloney's trying to build something there. Lincoln, you've got them in the playoffs. You've got them 6th. I haven't. And Blackpool, they were not far away last year. Get good crowds, will be again up there. You would think it's really tricky, and even further down, Burton Albion. I know you're really low on them, but they have had a takeover. They have had some really good signings. I think they got Elliot Watt in, Danilo Orsi in. They have got players that on paper look quite tidy, and who knows? I'm not so sure now. I look at my prediction on Leighton Orient. I think they could be. And also, I've kind of got something against Richie Wellens because I was once at a press conference where he hijacked his own press conference to tell everyone that I'd had a perm, which I hadn't. So ever since, I was kind of like, nah, this
Truth
guy. I
hurts,
don't.
doesn't it? Truth
No,
hurts.
you sound like Richie. No, it was just ridiculous. We were just in this press conference where it became about whether or not I'd had a perm. And if anyone's been to Swindon's sort of little press room off the side of the pitch, not the biggest room in the world, sat right next to a bloke accusing me of having a perm, but all natural. So, yeah, sorry, Richie. And what else have I got there? Bristol Rovers. No, I mean, there's a lot of teams here that I just think Wrexham are better than. People are saying like, oh, Wrexham will finish 16th or 15th or 14th. Or that would mean a lot of teams have to finish above Wrexham. And I don't want to sound arrogant because
Yeah.
we don't know. We've got, we're starting the season with Wycombe, who are absolutely loaded, Rich. I don't know if you know that. We're going to get onto a Wycombe chat shortly, but absolutely loaded. And then we've got Bolton away, really tough. Reading at home, they're just battlers. They're pre-season, they're absolutely nailing everyone. It's like 11 James McLean. They're just really, really battling for everything, fighting for everything. And then what is it? Peterborough away, that's an absolute nightmare. Then it's Shrewsbury. We both think that'll be rubbish, but it's a derby. So it'll be, well, can we say derby? I don't even know anymore what people say. And then Birmingham, is it? So
Yeah,
something like that.
it's a
It's close
really
enough.
tough start, isn't it? When you look at it, and yeah, we'll maybe have to evaluate our predictions after that short start to the season. But Wycombe at home this weekend, Dave. It is,
Yes.
it's going to be a real interesting test because we've both said Wycombe will be a sort of mid-table League One team. This is a real good day to sort of gauge how close we really are to League One standards. And yeah, Kai Ras at home, sun shining hopefully, new kit, some new players, everyone feeling optimistic for the season ahead. It won't be like MK Dons again, will it?
No, I don't think it will, but I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be a close game. These are a team that finished top half. I think it was 10th maybe last year in League One. They've got ambitions of getting the playoffs. They've got money to spend. They're not spending it, seemingly. They've got like a Georgian billionaire or something like that. And I caught up with the guys over at HP12 podcast, part of the TalkSport Fan Network. They do a Wycombe podcast. Not 100% sure on the sound, but I've done my best with it. So whatever you hear is the best version of it. This is a lowdown on Wycombe, what we can expect and who to keep an eye out for. Right then, as we always do every season that we've done this podcast, we don't know the first thing about Wycombe or about Bolton coming up, or Peterborough, or Reading, or whoever else we've got to come, lots and lots of teams that we're going to learn about. And one of the main things you guys say you like is you like listening to those fans come on, tell us about their best players, give away all their tactics, and then we go and win 3-0 and it's happy days. So the heroes of HP12, Wycombe podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network. Dan is with us. Thank you very much to Dan. Dan, firstly, are we in for a bit of a shock when Wycombe? Are we in for a bit of a shock with League One? Are we in for some reality checks?
I don't know about Wycombe so far, only because we've had a bit of a transitional off-season ourselves. So at the moment, I think some of us don't know what to expect. I think for League One, though, you might just be. I've always thought that League Two and the National League is quite similar in terms of quality. So I thought as soon as you got promoted in that season, which what an amazing season it was, I thought you'll storm League Two. And obviously Stockport did as well, because it's a very similar quality. What we've seen over the last few years in League One is a significant investment of money. I mean, you just only need to look at Birmingham spending to kind of see the types of money, the type of money that's going around this league at the moment. And through the last few years, we've had Sunderland and Portsmouth and Ipswich is spending quite a lot of money to get out the league. It's an interesting one for us, because usually you have these big teams come down from the Championship and they expect to steamroll the league and go straight back up again. Derby were like it, Sunderland were like it, and Birmingham this year are the ones that are kind of piping up that they're going to storm the league and everything else. But we've not had it so far where we've had teams come up from League Two expecting to go up straight away, because I think you're probably in the same pool as Stockport, aren't you? They're kind of just expecting to go straight up again. But I think you'd be in for a bit of a shock, to be honest. It's a highly competitive league. I think it's probably what the Championship was about 10 years ago. Sorry.
Yeah, Stockport have made some made some good moves as well, and then we're hoping that maybe there's that big striker to come for us, and then we've made Dan Scarr at the back's a very good signing. Went up with Plymouth in their 102 points, whatever that was. We've gone and got George Dobson, an experienced campaigner out of Charlton. So we've got pieces that are really nice. Seb Revan was Young Player of the Season for Rotherham last year in the Championship. For Wycombe, though, why are you not so sure? You finished 10th last year, which was, the kind of position that most people are tipping Wrexham to be, in and around that kind of just outside the playoffs, top half type. What's happened with Wycombe then over the off-season? Why are you a bit uncertain?
So our previous owner, who bought us from the Supporters Trust, or took over from the Supporters Trust, as it were, he sold it to a Georgian billionaire who has put Dan Rice, who has developed Southampton and Everton's academy over the years, as an interim chairman. Now, I mean, in all grand respect, that puts us as one of the richest teams in the country, which is unbelievable for what we've deemed to be Little Wycombe for the last 30 years or more. But we've got Matt Bloomfield in there, who went through a bit of a transitional season. It was his first full season in charge of us last year. We had a spell back from September through to January where we didn't win in about 19 or 20 games. And there was an insistence to keep trying three at the back, which didn't work for us and everything else. And then we started from the 1st of January to pick up a bit of form. And we ended the season 4th in the form table from January onwards. So if we'd actually, started the season from January, we were doing well up there. We've retained most of our players, which is great, absolutely fantastic. We've lost Chris Farino, who was one of our centre-backs come through our youth development system. He's gone to Bolton. And we've lost a couple of other players as well. But we seem to have consolidated well with a few good signings. So Dan Harvey, who we've been interested in over a season now. He's filled the left-back spot, which we struggled to fill last season. We've brought Tyreek Baconson in, who's got a good experience going up with Sheffield Wednesday. We've got Dan Udoh from Shrewsbury, obviously your rivals, who you might know that scored a few goals over the last few years. So we've bought well. and we're going for a more youthful approach. So we're not sure about kind of how we'll start. I mean, we literally, just to put it into perspective, we had the biggest hype last season. We had a really good signing period. We signed about 10 players. Went into the first game against Exeter. We thought we're going to win the league here. This is absolutely fine. We lost 3-0. And then we played Lincoln and we lost 3-0. We were like, okay, this isn't that season. So I'm cautiously optimistic. So let's see how we go. I mean, I think a lot of teams kind of, if I'm looking through all the predictions that are coming up over the last week, a lot of that pundits are putting us in 17th, 19th. There's no way we're going to be 17th to 19th with the money that we've got and the investment and the focus that our owners and directors have. I would put us in the top half, challenging for the playoffs. But we'll see. We'll see where we go.
There's a lot of money sloshing around. It seems like Wycombe have got a lot of it, but maybe not spending it quite like a Birmingham or a Huddersfield. You're recording this today. I think they've had an £800,000 bid accepted for a Luton striker. What can we expect then? I know it's the first game of the season and it's difficult to know. I mean, you're definitely going to expect a 3-5-2 from Wrexham, but what can we expect maybe as a setup for Wycombe and kind of 2 or 3 key players to watch that could really change the game? Because we saw last season with MK Dons, they came to the racecourse with absolutely no fear and did a job on us 5-3 in the end.
I think you will expect a no fear approach from us as well. I mean, we've always had quite if we look at how we played over pre-season, we've had quite a positive attacking mentality, which is nice for us. I think he's learned his lesson with 3 at the back last season, so we'll definitely pretty much see a 4 at the back. We've got a good back 2 pair in Joe Lowe, who's broken into the Welsh senior team, and Alex Hartridge, who's come from Exeter and has been he's got good League One experience, so we should be okay. In the middle of the park, you'll be looking out for Josh Scowen and Luke Leahy. Luke Leahy came from Shrewsbury last season, literally a leader on the pitch and gives it 100% for the whole game. And Josh is just you'll probably be booing him in the 10th minute because he'll have gone through one of your players and kind of caused an injury somewhere along the line. So, but he's just hard and works hard and everything like that. On the wings, we've got Gareth McCleary if he starts, who former Premier League striker, played with Reading. He's been with us since our championship season. Still very fast at 37. I mean, I'm 35 and I don't know how he runs as fast as he does. Then we've got Kieran Sadlier, who was at Bolton, who's really coming on as well, and he looks good. Going up front, I don't know who we're going to start with because we've got Richard Kone, who's a bit of a fairy tale. He's come from Athletic Newham of the Essex Senior League last season in January.
Wow.
He was training with us kind of from August, September last season, but we had to jump through hoops to get visa for him because he's from the Ivory Coast. But since he's come in, he's one of those where everyone really gets behind him, and he's really worked on his strength and physicality. So he's going to be really good up front. But then we might start with Dan Udo as well. Not forget, we've also got Sam Vokes on the bench, coming off the bench as a Welsh legend as well. So we've got good depth this season. But I'd be intrigued to see how we start. I can't pick the starting 11 at the moment.
That's interesting. I mean, lastly, then let's just go on the manager, because there's a lot of interesting managers in League One. You've got some, stalwarts like a Phil Parkinson, like a Darryl Clark, or there's off the top of my head, there's loads of who else can I think of in there? Darren Ferguson, obviously well known to us. A lot of people that have been in the league a long time and have got a lot of experience. Chris Davis at Birmingham's fairly new. What can we expect from Matt Bloomfield? Where do you sort of put him in the? Is he someone that you could see going up the leagues if it's not with Wycombe, or do you think he's got a lot to prove still?
He's a young manager who's keen, and he's adapting and learning very quickly. I think the one thing that we saw last season was that he wasn't willing to adapt and change his tactics. He's got a very set way that he wants to play. He's quite determined on how he wants to play. I think he will in time become a fantastic manager. Last season, when we had our older owners, he had a bit more time. When we went through the really torrid run, I think there was never any doubt that he wasn't going anywhere, even when, we did have some fans calling for his head, but they stuck with him and it paid dividends. Finishing fourth in that 2024 league table is good going, especially when it's as competitive as it is. But he's growing, he's positive, he's keen, and he's got our culture. And I think that's what's really important, is that, our culture, as the Wycombe way, as we call it, is very important to us. So the way that he goes about how he does his transfers, it's all, focusing on personality and how they conduct themselves on and off the pitch, things like that. He's a Wycombe legend. Matt's played for Wycombe his entire career, bar a couple of games for Ipswich, since 2004. So, he knows the club inside and out. So, we're confident that he'll do a good job. But obviously, with the new owners in, I think he's got a bit of a bit of leeway, as it were, to, he's got to hit the ground running, because we've spent a bit more in terms of wages and things like that to get, high caliber clubs in, players in. And we're gunning to go up for the Championship in the next 3 years. So that's where we are as a club at the moment.
Go on then. What's the prediction? I know you're cautiously optimistic, but it's opening game of the season, brand new season, football's back. What do you reckon? How do you think it'll play out?
I think it's going to be a tight game, because I think Wrexham are going to be up for it. You're going to have a full crowd. We filled our away end as well, I think. So I think it's going to be really good atmosphere, which will play into the game. I would be very happy with a 2-1 win, but I think it'll probably be a high-scoring draw.
So there you go, Rich. They're trying to stay cautiously optimistic, which is the classic thing of they've maybe been burned before by being a little bit overly optimistic, which might come back to bite us this year. But we'll see. I think it'll be a good game that we will probably just edge.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, like we said, it's the fact it's us at home, just that feel-good factor in the Kairos, and dare to dream. Why not Wrexham? We've now got this difficulty of having sort of North Walian cynicism and this North American optimism, both going, head to head, and it's got to meet in the middle somewhere. But why not Wrexham? I think we'll get the top half, and if you get the top half, you can get the playoffs. If you get the playoffs, who knows what can happen? And back to back, why not? It's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult, but it's not going to be impossible for Wrexham this season. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think we'll win just about this weekend. I've said it so often, I think we'll win 2-1. Was that 2 years ago? Maybe like today we beat Eastleigh 2-1, the Elliott Lee debut brace.
What a game.
Yeah, which again was a really tough opening day. They sort of did a job on us. We didn't start clicking too well. And I think we'll also see that on Saturday, that both teams aren't quite at it yet, as a competitive sort of nature, be a bit sloppy in places. And then it's on to Sheffield United, which was weird previewing that game over a week before it was going to happen, which I tried doing at the start of this week. And again, it's so difficult to say what the team will be like and who will play. But we caught up with Hal from the Sheffield United Way podcast, and here is what he had to say ahead of the Carabao Cup meeting next week. Hal, thank you very much for joining us. I suppose the question is, looking ahead to our meeting in the Carabao Cup, what is the United verdict on this? Is this a competition you're looking to go far in, or is it still the focus on just getting back to the Premier League?
I mean, for me personally, I like to win every game. I think Chris Wilder will probably say the same. It is Wrexham, so adds a little bit of spice after the last cup exchanges. Generally, though, I think the vibe will be focus on the league. I think Wrexham will want to focus on the league as well. Obviously, the long-term plan for Wrexham will require you getting out of the current league you're in, and it's the same for Sheffield United. We want to bounce back at the first attempt, so I would have thought the League Cup is probably at the very bottom of the list of season priorities.
In terms of the side we can see then, do you think it will be reflected? Because it is only 2 games into the season for both of us, so you could theoretically play quite a strong side, but do you think that Chris Wilder will try and take a look at some of those fringe players who maybe didn't play in the league this weekend?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think he will go with some more youngsters, promising youngsters. Sheffield United do produce quality youth, so I wouldn't actually be too upset, and I would be, maybe if I was a Wrexham fan, more concerned actually, because some of our young players are looking good. Pre-season was really telling, and we saw some very exciting young players, and there's more on that conveyor belt. We keep producing. The only shame for being a Blade is we often sell them on, and then they go and do very well in the Premier League, as we've seen with players like Harry Maguire and Kyle Walker and Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Aaron Ramsdale and the like. So David Brooks as well, who fans of the Welsh national team will know. So it's all about holding on, and Will Asula the next on the line. So Newcastle fans will be telling us about him in years to come, I'm sure.
I was going to ask you about that in terms of who are the personnel then that, from your personal point of view, you'd like to see involved on Tuesday. You said if you're going to get a chance to see some of these youngsters and test them in a proper sort of men's game as well.
Yeah, Peck. I really like the look of Peck in midfield. I think he's going to be an absolute future superstar for Sheffield United. I like Hampson. I like Louis Marsh as well. I think he's got goals in him. I like Femi Sariki, who's just got wheels for feet. I would be very happy to see him and what he can do. Faxon, the goalkeeper, he could be one. I think probably better than quite a few other goalkeepers at Bramall Lane at the moment. There's a centre-back whose name I can't pronounce because it's too difficult. I think it's got a number in it. So he's one as well that you can, as soon as you see that name, you'll go, oh, it was that guy that he was on about. Yeah.
In terms of, like you said, Cup reunion with Wrexham, there was a certain excitement about it. Of course, it's the TV pick for next week on Sky because of what happened in those FA Cup ties. What was the reaction from a Sheffield United point of view? Because I think Wrexham was mixed of, oh, this is tasty, but it's you guys again. And we know how maybe not nasty, but how heated it got last time when we met you in the FA Cup.
I mean, I personally don't have anything against Wrexham. I think it's quite exciting to see what's happening. I mean, I love watching Welcome to Wrexham. I think it's a brilliant programme. I really enjoyed it. Watched every episode, and I love what
fit our narrative.
Sorry. I've always been a massive fan of Rob McElhenney and a lot of his work, and Ryan Reynolds is fine as well. But I'm much more Team Rob. And if I was stupid enough, and I never would be, to buy a football club, I would do it the same way that those two have done it. And also investing in the community, I think, is just fantastic. It's not just about the 11 on the field; it's all that goes in the background and what they're doing it, for the town as well. It's just fantastic, and I think the people of Wrexham deserve that. I want to see this journey continue. I'm very interested to see where it goes. Financially, I think there'll be problems down the road because it's just getting exponentially more and more difficult to compete, as Sheffield United saw, in the Premier League. So when you get to that stage, and Wrexham will get to that stage, I think further investment will be required. But in terms of if you want me to say I hate Wrexham, I'm sorry, I don't. I like the drama because this is meant to be entertainment, right? And, as far back as the amphitheatres, there's always been the villain and the goodie, and this is just meant to be something that we enjoy on our weekends or weeknights. And so for you guys, Billy Sharp was the baddie, and for us, I guess Phil Parkinson. But it was just entertainment. It was all sort of handbags, all a bit silly, and I welcomed it. It's nice to have we needed that, I think, at the time, Sheffield United, because we were just so focused on actually just going through the motions of what we knew we were going to achieve that season. Actually having something like a little distraction, like a cup run, was loads of fun. And I liked throwing in that little bit of drama with Wrexham. It was great. Yeah,
and of course, like you said, maybe that will add that element for next Tuesday because, spoiler alert to any North American fans, Carabao Cup early rounds are usually dull affairs. But the fact we've got something to go at it, like you said, both crowds can play up to a faux rivalry for one match and act like there's a bit of vitriol there for what is otherwise quite a reserve fixture. I was going to ask you as well, we are new to League One after a long hiatus of 20 odd years. What would your word of warning be to Wrexham fans? Obviously the momentum's there, which is priceless about going again for promotion, but even as a Sheffield United fan, you've been involved in League One campaigns and how difficult it is to find that step up back to the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. You can get stuck in League One if you kind of don't go straight back. And, we nearly did go straight back. And then, we had a few sort of moments of will we, won't we? And then, an awful season under Nigel Adkins. And it can feel like you're never going to get out of this. And what what I would like for Wrexham fans, if I was a Wrexham fan, was to see you just continue that momentum and that kind of crest of a wave, which you do see with some sides. They just keep kicking on, and we've also more recently when we did get out of League One, it was under Chris Wilder, and he got the whole team galvanised and believing. But that Adkins season, if you'd asked Blades fans straight after that season, in fact, I was there that last game, and it was horrific. The kind of things that were being thrown at the players, and we had a really poor squad. We had some diamonds in that rough, but we hadn't really seen them, and Wilder got the best out of them, and then we kicked on. So it's all about for League One. It's not so much how you start; it's how you finish, and we didn't start well. So don't panic. Even in the season we got promotion, we didn't start well. And you can also sort of get away with that in the Championship. Now, you can't get away with that in the Premier League because it's only 38 games. When you've got 46 games to play with, 3 points doesn't feel as massive. In the Premier League, every single point matters. I felt like with League One and with the Championships, you can sort of be 10th by January, do some serious business in that window and have a late run. And it's always the team that ends up finishing right in the last gasp playoff position that will have that momentum in the playoffs if that's how it's going to be. Or you can still make a run for automatics depending on how far away the others are. So don't panic is my advice. Early biscuits, as is one of my favourite sayings. If it doesn't go great, first 5-6 games.
This isn't the way the interview was meant to go. You gave us a glowing endorsement, said that you want us to do well, and now giving us some sound advice ahead of the new season. There's meant to be some edge to this. I guess finally, Hal, the game next Tuesday, which we got you on for, it is indifferent. I don't think either team will be too bothered if they get knocked out. But what is your prediction for the game? Do you think that Sheffield United's sort of gulf and quality will shine through on a night where both teams are probably going to make some changes?
I mean, yeah, obviously on paper we should win, but if we do throw a lot of youngsters in who haven't experienced this kind of, let's be honest, it could actually be quite a tasty atmosphere, and maybe a couple of early crunching tackles from men on boys, they might actually go, hang on, I don't fancy this. It could be that, or it could be that Chris Wilder goes, you know what, I know how much this is going to mean to the fans. We are going to be shown around the world. Let's not embarrass ourselves, and let's maybe go with as much of a first team as we can. And I do feel if both our first teams, full strength, went head-to-head, we should win quite comfortably. We've still got a lot of good players that did very well to get out of the Championship, didn't do well in the Premier League, but there are a number of reasons we could go into another time about that. So I'll say, if you want a bit of needle and and you want me to just get one or two people disliking me at the end, why not 4-0 Blades?
What a way to end it. So, Nath, really annoying. He was a nice Sheffield United fan. That was not what was meant to happen. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. A bit of bite. They'll be watching Eyes of the World as well, with it being on Sky Sports. Was it Wigan we played? Was that on Sky Sports as well last year?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
They missed a penalty.
Another sort of favourable start to the Carabao Cup that we've got a tasty tie to look forward to. What are you expecting for it? I know we've disagreed on this in recent weeks because I do think we'll go wholesale changes for Sheffield United, just because wholesale changes now means, like you said, Brunt will play, Scarr will play. You'll have basically a whole new side. George Evans will come in. What a weakened team that is. Revan, Bolton. So I think we will change everyone for Sheffield United, but you think it might be similar to the Wycombe team.
I don't. I think he'll want to get a win on the board early, and if we don't get that win against Wycombe, I think there'll be you don't want to get into bad habits. You don't want to suddenly go 2, 3, 4 games, because realistically, Bolton is a very, very tough game. That could easily end in defeat. We could win it at the same time, but I think he'll want to go to Sheffield United and win. That will have bothered the players that are still left there and the club. I think it have irked Parky how that Sheffield United game went, where they were really just disrespectful in the end, and not the whole club, but not just Billy Sharp either. There were a few players that were absolutely riled up by Wrexham beyond belief. And I don't know, you want to land a heavy blow against a team like that, one of the big dogs in the draw at this stage. So, I think we'll go for it on whether we'll wear the gold or. Well, I hope we're going for gold. So I hope we're in gold, and that's what we can call the podcast. But
I just hope that we score and we do the Son Heung-min celebration.
Yes, that's all. I would. I would.
James McLean would probably do that as well. That's the beauty of it. We have the shithousery now.
The thing is, with James McLean, I just wonder how that game would have gone. Like, just how. Not that around any reflection on our lads there, but just he would have just been right at it. Billy Sharp would have been fearful of James. Well, fearful's maybe a bit strong, but he wouldn't have. I'd have dared to have mocked our fans like he did with James McLean on the pitch. Absolutely no chance. Forget it. Just not a chance in hell. So that'll be feisty. I think I could see a red card in that one way or the other as well for somebody. So I think it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it.
First.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That'll be my first game this season. I unfortunately can't make Wycombe due to work, so I'll be following along as best I can, and hopefully we land 3 points to set us on our way.
Yeah, we will see what happens. Thank you very much to all of you for tuning in. It's always on RobRyanRed. Emails we will get to again in the coming weeks. I know there's actual surprise. We read some of them last week, and the guy who recommended the strip club got back in contact again. He was surprised you read that email out. We're reading out your reply effectively now because there was a great line he put in that email, Nave, wasn't there? He said,
"Are you going to read that out?"
Yeah, he said, "To be honest, I'm shocked I was the only one to send you a tip about that club. Glad to hear you had a good time in Vancouver and got to see some of our forests up close, if not some bush." Thank you very much for joining us on RobRyanRed. You can get us on all the socials. You know it all by now. Thank you very much to Red 10 People Development for the continued support of the podcast. We simply couldn't do it without you. And also shout out to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings that we use. Nave can't believe I read that email. Yeah, bring on Wycombe. We'll see you next time.
A Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.